the 3 ways of DevOps are sort of fundamental principles of DevOps as described in a famous book, The Phoenix Project, which is the full title, I guess, is A Novel About IT, DevOps, and Helping Your Businesses Win. The book was written by some of the more famous DevOps people, Gene Kim, Kevin Bayer, and George Spafford. So fundamentally, the 3 ways are principles that have to do with improving the flow of work, feedback, and continuous learning. Those are underlying principles of pretty much everything about DevOps. So to explain that a little bit, the first way, flow, I actually call it continuous flow because everything in DevOps is continuous, but I think the book just says flow. So the first way emphasizes creating smooth, uninterrupted flow of work from starting with development and then taking that work all the way through integration and operations to the end user. So that involves optimizing processes that are involved in delivering and packaging code, reducing handoff delays, and emphasizes eliminating bottlenecks to make the whole flow frictionless and efficient, basically. So that's usually what flow is all about. The second way kind of builds on top of flow in the sense that you really need some level of flow before you can add feedback. But the second way is called, I call it continuous feedback. That books, I think, call it just feedback, which focuses on creating tight feedback loops at every stage in the pipeline from development to operations. The intention is that this will ensure that any problems that come up are quickly identified, addressed, and that feedback from users and also the processes themselves are going to satisfy the stakeholders once you complete the flow. And that can be, it can help you diagnose issues rapidly and just really confirm that flow is working properly. And also it provides audit data that is needed in order to prove that you're doing things properly to auditors. The third way, which the book calls continuous experimentation and learning, I sometimes shorten that to just continuous improvement, but it means I mean the same thing. So with continuous experimentation and learning, it's really builds again on top of the first 2 ways. You really have to have flow and feedback before you can make improvements. So the idea is it encourages a culture of continuous experimentations, learning and improvements. It involves, for example, accepting that changes will introduce some level of risk, and experimentation should be done proactively, recognizing that really in order to make improvements to the flow, and for that matter even feedback, you're going to need to try new things. But hopefully if you've got flow and feedback going well, then you will be able to mitigate the risks of changing things. Fundamentally, it's about learning of the successes and learning also from the failures of different trials and attempts to make improvements and innovations. And that when you get to the third way, there really isn't a fourth way. It's all about, that's kind of the mature level defined, at least in the book. I actually think there's a fourth way coming now with AI, but it's outside the scope of the answering this question. But the general idea, I think there's going to be some level of autonomy of improvement once you get, fully implemented with AI. That might be a topic for another day.
Absolutely.
So why should, your other question was, why should organizations embrace the first way, continuous flow? There's actually a lot of reasons. In fact, in the good old days, I was a little skeptical myself when the days were that you would, have releases measured in, months cadence rather than weeks or hours or days. So faster delivery actually turns out to have a lot of benefits, even if you don't deploy it all the time, but going through all the steps and making things, ready for deployment gives organizations a lot of, flexibility. So optimizing the flow, organizations, you give back time to, do other things, be more innovative, be able to use that time of being faster. to work on other things or just improve flow further. Yeah, so that's the first thing, faster delivery of features and changes. The benefit of flow is to improve quality. So a smooth flow helps you identify and eliminate bottlenecks and efficiencies, but by doing that, you've got more time again to really concentrate on quality improvements and ways of detecting and testing better, and generally speaking, improve quality. So it's a kind of counterintuitive that if you speed things up, you get better quality. You might think, well, slow things down to get better quality, but if you're instrumenting flow properly in a more automated fashion, you can actually get both at the same time. Increased responsiveness. That's one of the cool things about DevOps, is the idea that you can get more stability if you're faster to be able to detect and recover from problems. You're not necessarily trying to build a product that will never fail, because that's probably not realistic. Instead, what you do is you make sure that you can move quickly, detect problems quickly, and respond quickly. So that's true for problems. It's also true for new features. So you get a competitive edge if you can respond faster than your competitors, for example, and deliver new features quicker. Collaboration is another good one. And I think this also speaks to the fact that, people, employees and staff and other stakeholders tend to enjoy working in places better if it's a collaborative environment. And part of the idea of DevOps, along with the technology and CI/CD pipelines and so on, is to really enable collaboration between developers, ops folks, business people, tool people, security people, and that collaboration actually is a more enjoyable experience, and that in turn tends to make people more motivated, and that in turn tends to have an impact on flow. And generally speaking, greater value, deliver faster and more rapidly and higher quality. Overall, the customers are going to enjoy a better product, and everybody, the business stakeholders and so on, will see the value being created by DevOps is improved. That's one of the cool things about DevOps overall. You don't just get one of those benefits at the expense of others. They all can occur if you engineer DevOps properly. So overall, enabling the first way of DevOps is critical for organizations if they want to streamline processes, especially delivery processes, enhance efficiency, achieve faster, higher quality software delivery, and generally speaking, a more interesting team environment. Typically, organizations undergoing a transformation to DevOps will start by implementing some level of flow and implement a CI/CD pipeline that is part of the flow before attempting to instrument feedback mechanisms using the principles of the second way and ultimately the third way. So the order is somewhat important. It doesn't mean you have to have perfect flow before you can get going with the second way and third way, but you're gonna have to have some level of flow working before it makes sense to do a whole lot with the second way or the third way. So that's my answer.